sweet the sound and save a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fear to believe. How precious did that grace appear, how I first believed. That was written by John Newton. John Newton was a slave trader. He made many voyages to the United States bringing slaves. One day, he was nearly shipwrecked, and he was locked up just as a slave. He was treated as a slave. This song was his autobiography about him being redeemed. He was a big-time, prosperous minister, preacher back in England. He wrote that song. He was redeemed.
Use the mic. They can't hear you, Paul.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you, wife. All of you all know me by the name of Pop. This church is special to me. I was baptized about right here in this church.
If you talk close to your lips right here, did you?
Okay, Mr. Moore. I was baptized in this church. The bell that I used to run from across town over here on the side is still in the loft right here. But one thing that's missing from this church is the outhouse. There was never a bathroom like this in this church as long as I went. We had an outhouse. So, I love this church. It's special to me. I want to thank all of you all for coming. I want to thank the Historical Cultural Center members for thinking enough of me to have me to come here. The first blacks that came to America came as explorers. One of Columbus's captains was a guy by the name of Pedro Nutrolando. He was a black Spaniard. Now, the history that we study begins in the year 1619. That's the beginning of English history. When the Spanish people had brought blacks over here way before the Englishmen had brought them. In Jamestown, Virginia, there were 20 black slaves, or indentured servants, that were the first to come over here with the English. And they were indentured servants, which meant that they worked for a while, and then they were set free. Now what happened, there was a little Indian girl by the name of Pocahontas. She had two Johns in her life. She had a John Smith, and she had a John Rolfe. The John Rolfe was the guy that was instrumental in getting the tobacco business started. Now, history, H-I-S-T-O-R-Y, history, means his story. His story. When I read history, I read 50 things pertaining to one thing because it's all mumbled up and jumbled up. So you can't take history to mean what someone says, one particular person. But anyway, it's the back end of the story. John Rolfe and Pocahontas Outhouse took some Indians with them back to England. And they put these Indians on display. And they were going around telling the Englishmen, if you would smoke tobacco, you would live a long life like these Indians. This is the truth. But by knowing Indians live out in the element, their bodies are weather beaten, and they just look older than they actually are due to some hereditary or genetic, whatever it may be. But this is how the tobacco industry got started. That's why I never smoked. Okay, now, slavery began to grow as a result of the tobacco industry. The whites who came over to the Jamestown colony, they were elite people. Not necessarily elite, but they were able to do the work. Therefore, they had to resort to the Indians doing the work. And the Indians couldn't enslave them. They would run away, and they just refused to be made to do anything. So they looked to Africa, and that's when the slave trade really got a boost. It got a big boost. In the colony of Virginia and the colony of Maryland, they began to impose a lot of laws that began to make slavery a lifetime experience as opposed to being indentured service. Now, slavery was called the peculiar institution. It was called the peculiar institution. You can read today's definition as to what it means today, but that's not the way it is, okay? That's not the way I was taught back in the 70s. Now, it's called the peculiar institution because it differed. It differed. Everywhere you went in the colonies, it was different. We had the New England colonies, which were the northern colonies, and we had the middle colonies, and we had the southern colonies. Slavery was different in those colonies. It was called the peculiar institution. It was called the peculiar institution. Whites owned blacks. They passed laws in Virginia and Maryland making it illegal for a black man to own a white man. Okay? I'm going to be truthful with you about the slave thing. It was the peculiar institution. Blacks owned blacks. Every white person did not own slaves, okay? Most of the slaves were in the southern colonies. The geography of the area determined the extent and the abuse of slaves. In the northern colonies, New Hampshire and other colonies, the people that settled those colonies mainly settled those because of religious purposes or religious reasons. So therefore, they had a different idea, a different belief as to how you treat people. They treated people more humane because of the Christian beliefs and the Christian reasons why they came. They were persecuted in England, and when they came to America, they felt that it was wrong to persecute someone over here. So it was different. Now, in the middle colonies, slavery was a little different. That's where you had the industry, a lot of industries and so forth going on. But in the South, slavery was a whole new world. 90% of slaves lived in the South, 90%. Now, in the northern colonies, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, you had a lot of shipbuilding and fishing and so forth on. If you were black and you lived there, you may have been owned by somebody, but they would, in many cases, they would rent you out They were the carpenters up there, the stonemasons. So therefore, they kind of educated you because they needed you, because they didn't want no one out there not being able to read a ruler. So that's why it was different up there. Now, when you came down to the middle colonies, where you had indigo being grown and you had the tobacco, they kind of depended on slavery, not as much as it did in the South. But in the South, you had chattel slavery. And that was butt-naked wrong, okay? That was butt-naked wrong how you treat somebody. It was wrong.
All right.
It was wrong. And that's where you had the plantation system. That's where you had the plantation system. And that's something no one could force on a human being. It was butt-naked wrong. I don't care what you read or who read it or who said it. Slavery was wrong. It was wrong. Now, the Bible was used as a tool to make or justify slavery. The Bible. People use the curse of Ham.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you something. That's one of the biggest myths that's ever been told. And if anybody ever tell you the truth about Ham, and if you're stupid enough to believe it, something wrong with you. Something wrong with you. Fake news just didn't start here. We been around. In the book of Ephesians it says, chapter 6, verse 5, Paul says, servants, be obedient to them that are your masters according to the flesh. That was a Bible verse that was really used. But to top everything off, there was a special Bible that was written. It was called the Slave Bible, okay? It was a Bible that was specifically written for slaves. The Bible was written in England. And it was a book that the missionaries used to give blacks that were able to read in the West Indies. They were given this book to teach them because that was the job of the missionary. Now in this book, you can find it online, and there's one at Fisk University up in Nashville, Tennessee. That's where one of the is found in the United States. It's there. It's in its archives that you can read. Now, this Bible, 90% of the Old Testament was taken out of the Bible. 90% of the Old Testament was taken out of this Bible because it talked about Moses being free, setting people free. And they didn't want blacks to get an idea of what freedom was like, okay? They didn't want them to get that. In the book of Galatians, it says here, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male or female, for ye all are one in Christ. That's something they definitely didn't want people of color to read. You know, the Bible in the church was one of the main reasons why people were put enslaved and why they remained enslaved. Now, the presidents of the 18 presidents of the United States owned slaves. 18 of them. George Washington had 317, and Thomas Jefferson had 600. Now, slaves were mistreated. Sally Hemings, she was a slave. Thomas Jefferson fell in love with her, had kids with Sally Hemings. Thomas Jefferson. But yet and still, he's talking about giving me liberty and all that kind of stuff. But look how he mistreated people. For one thing, he did free all of his slaves. In his will, upon his death, he did free his slaves. So a lot of things happened during those days that people don't want to talk about. And they happen. Okay. You had the abolitionist movement. That was a time in history where people were against it, against slavery. And most of the abolitionists were people that lived in the North. They lived in the North. Now, they felt that slavery was wrong. A lot of these people in these New England colonies, they outlawed slavery in the year 1800 in most of those northern colonies. They were 65 years ahead of the people in the South. Now, slaves rebelled. Slaves didn't like it. They rebelled. And they had a right to do it. They had a right to do it because it was butt naked, wrong like that. You don't do nobody like that. You don't do nobody like that. You don't do it. There were a lot of rebellions. There were a lot of slaves that were killed in uprisings, and there were all kinds of things. There were all kinds of things that happened to people. Now, we had a little old lady. They said she was about 5'1" tall. This lady was named Harriet Beach Stowe. She wrote a book. And the book that she wrote was called Uncle Tom's Cabin. Uncle Tom's Cabin. It was not a true, it was a fiction one, but the impact of it, the moral value of that book was so potent that Abraham Lincoln referred to her as being the little old lady that started the Civil War. She was hated. People were out to kill her because of the way she talked about how inhuman can a person be to treat somebody that way. And she was a hated lady for that particular book. We had William Lloyd Garrison. They wrote books all about liberating, and he was a person that was hated. So what I'm saying is that slavery touched the hearts of a lot of people. A lot of our people. And you know, whites, if they felt that way, you know the story. Now the nation began to grow apart because of slavery. It began to grow apart. You know, the North, South. You know, the South seceded. You know, the North said, Abraham Lincoln House divided against itself cannot stand. You know, we had the Civil War. The Civil War was fought. And when the Civil War was fought, we split. We split as a nation. You know, the North won it. We tried to bring the South back. And unfortunately, it was we had, at that time, right after the Civil War, we had the Black Amendments written, or the Civil War Amendments, which was the 13th, 14th, and the 15th Amendment to the Constitution. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution gave blacks freedom. 14th made them citizens, and the 15th gave them the right to vote. Gave them the right to vote. And this didn't happen until years 65, 68, and 69. So, you know, here you are, you have been in a nation. You know, here you fought the American Revolutionary War. Here you are right now fighting in the Civil War. And you're not even a citizen and you fighting for something? That defied all logic. There were black people that fought in the Civil War on the South Side. And there were black people that fought in the Civil War on the North Side. My great-great-great-granddad fought on the Union side of the Civil War. There's a lot that you got to connect. Now the Civil War did happen. It's gone. It's gone. Okay, it's gone. we talk about